Spoštovani govorniki in panelisti, spoštovani gostje, dame in gospodje. V čast mi je, da vas lahko pozdravim na panelu o turizmu na konferenci Bled Strategic Forum 2024. Dear speakers and panelists, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my big pleasure to welcome you at the tourism panel at the Bled Strategic Forum 2024. After a brief introduction in Slovenian language, we will continue in the working language of Bled Strategic Forum, that is English. So, we are deeply honored to welcome such a distinguished audience today. I would like to extend a special welcome to Mr. Matevž Frangež, State Secretary at the Ministry of the Economy, Tourism and Sport of the Republic of Slovenia. Ms. Dubravka Kalin, Director General of the Directorate of Tourism at the Ministry of Economy, Tourism and Sport of the Republic of Slovenia. Ms. Maja Pak, Olaj, Director of the Slovenian Tourist Board. And, of course, our esteemed guests. Ms. Natalia Bayona, the Executive Director of UN Tourism. Mr. Eduardo Santander, Chief Executive Officer of the European Travel Commission. Ms. Apolonija Oblak Flander, Director General of the Statistical Office of the Republic of Slovenia. Mr. Erwin Hinteregger, Chief Executive Officer at the IDM South Tyrol, and Mr. Tobias Pogorevc, the CEO of Helvetic Airways. Today, we will delve into the transformative power of data in shaping the future of tourism. Our focus will be on how data can drive sustainable growth and responsible travel, enhance the tourist experience, and support the well-being of local communities. We will start with the opening remarks from our distinguished speakers, Ms. Pak Olaj and Mr. Frangež. Following this, Ms. Natalia Bayona and Mr. Eduardo Santander will deliver their keynote presentations, providing global and European perspective on today's topic. Next, we will have a brief discussion and a Q&A session with both presenters. And to conclude, we will engage in an insightful discussion with 4 expert panelists with participation of you, our dear audience. With that being said, I believe we are ready to begin. Please join me in welcoming on stage the Director of the Slovenian Tourist Board, Ms. Maja Pak, with the warm applause.
Dear colleagues, esteemed guests and speakers, warm welcome to the Bled Strategic Forum Tourism Panel. It is a privilege to stand before you today. We are navigating an era marked by unprecedented challenges: climate change, evolving customer preferences, a shortage of skilled workers, geopolitical tensions, technological advancements, health crises, and even armed conflicts. We can no longer afford to only react to the rapidly shifting landscape around us. It is time to move from a reactive approach to a proactive strategy. And this is why we chose to spotlight data today. Data is the lifeblood of our industry's future. It holds the power to revolutionize our understanding of visitors, to forecast trends with unmatched accuracy, and to manage our precious resources with wisdom. A staggering amount of 2.5 quintillion bytes of data are created each day. So the question arises, How deeply are we really tapping into this vast wealth of information? And maybe more importantly, how far ahead are our competitors in doing the same? In Slovenia, we operate according to our tourism strategy in what we call a boutique environment. Unlike the impersonal, hyper-technological approaches seen elsewhere, our tourism strives to be intimate, personal, deeply connected to our nature, culture, and community. But in a world where change is constant and competition fierce, how do we ensure that this approach not only survives but thrives? And the key lies in embracing data as our ally. To fully unlock the power of data, we must address several key challenges, and let me highlight 4 areas. First, data quality and accuracy. Reliable data is the foundation of any strategy. Inaccurate or outdated data isn't just useless, it's dangerous. In the Global Risks Report for 2024, over a half of respondents cited AI-generated misinformation and disinformation as a significant concern. Second, data privacy and security. In today's data-driven world, safeguarding data is essential. Trust is our most valuable asset, and protecting our visitor information with the highest security standards is non-negotiable. Third, data accessibility and transparency. For data to be truly valuable, it must be accessible to all stakeholders. Data needs to be shared openly and fairly. And fourth, skills and capabilities. Data's potential is only unlocked when we know how to use it. We need to make sure that everyone, from managers to frontline staff, knows how to fully use data. And let's look at some facts. Our 90% of tourism enterprises in Europe are small and medium enterprises. In Slovenia, that share is close to 100%. The Statistical Office of Slovenia states that only 26% of employees in accommodation and food service activities in Europe have above basic digital skills. And this number is even lower in Slovenia, only 21%. Data also shows that last year, in accommodation activities, employees in only 34% of enterprises in the EU performed data analytics. In Slovenia, only 13%. And only 4% of enterprises used business intelligence compared to 16% in the EU. So these statistics reveal gaps that all stakeholders must address with the right approach and resources. At the Slovenian Tourist Board, we wish to contribute by developing the National Intelligence Hub, a resource to empower the industry. We envision this hub as a powerful engine that transforms vast data into actionable insights. Intuitive and user-friendly, it will drive intelligent, sustainable growth and empower all stakeholders. Destinations will be able to use the hub's data to optimize tourism flows, benefiting local communities and visitors. Then state actors will gain insights for strategic decisions on legislation, funding, and also national marketing. And third, businesses will find new opportunities to improve efficiency, drive economic success, and empower employees. The hub's data will also strengthen the green scheme of Slovenian tourism. It will help us track progress and find areas to improve. With this data-driven approach, we can ensure our sustainable efforts make real impact. At the Slovenian Tourist Board, we are already harnessing the power of data. We use it to supercharge our digital content marketing. Relying on data, we ensure our messages reach the right audience, resonate deeply, and create meaningful connections across all channels. And this spring, as you know, we introduced Alma, our AI-powered virtual advisor, the first of its kind in Slovenian tourism. Why is Alma truly special? Because she's built on one core principle. Quality input is bedrock of quality output. Alma is drawing from the Slovenia.info database and our 50 verified and carefully selected Slovenian tourism websites. As such, she provides visitors with relevant, accurate, and updated information in 7 different languages. So, dear ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, let me leave you with my final thought. The future of tourism will not be shaped by those who follow the trends, but by those who harness the power of data to set them. The challenges before us are many, and the temptation to feel overwhelmed is real, but the time for hesitation is over. And before I conclude, I sincerely thank our distinguished speakers for sharing their insights today. I also extend my heartfelt thanks to everyone joining us in person and also online. So the next chapter of tourism is, I believe, ours to write. With data as our guide, let's create a future where our industry thrives and communities prosper. Thank you for your attention and have a wonderful day here in beautiful Bled. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Olaj, for this introduction into today's topic. Next, let's give a warm round of applause as we welcome to the stage the State Secretary of Ministry of Economy, Tourism and Sport of Republic of Slovenia, Mr. Matevž Frangež. The stage is yours.
Welcome to Bled Strategic Forum. Welcome to Slovenia. Maybe you know Nick Cave's song called Into My Arms. It begins with, I don't believe in interventionist God. But honey, if I did, and this is my addition, I would believe that the God special creation was this combination of magnificent divine scenery, breathtaking locations, nature, our wine and culinarics, a lot of even unicorns breeded in Slovenia. Okay, they don't have the wings and the horns, but the Lipizan horses are in fact the most artisan horses in the world. With all the beauties all across Slovenia, we believe that it is a privilege to develop this destination into already recognized most sustainable destination in the world. And because of all the treasures we are here to protect and to show those treasures to our guests welcome from all over the world. So, data. Data essentially needed to make the right decisions. Data needed to make our work with our guests as well as with our stakeholders as effective as possible. In tourism, Slovenia already built a strong ecosystem with magnificent work of our national Slovenian Tourist Board, with excellent work of tourist service providers from the hotels to outdoor and sport activities to wine and culinary offer that makes Slovenia a wine and culinary superpower of the world. With all the locations, with several and different strategies, because our guests in the western Alpine part are totally different than in the east. So it is our strong conviction that we have to invest in our data, and that's why Slovenian Tourist Organization already establishes the National Tourist Database in order to provide data in real time, providing possibilities to all the stakeholders in Slovenia as well as from abroad to make proper business, marketing decisions and even political decisions based on the data we can trust in. This is also the reason that we are, in fact, on the peak of one of the biggest investment cycles in Slovenian tourism, dedicated to the sustainable nature of those investments, both in accommodation, sport and outdoor programs all across Slovenia, as well as in improving our public tourist infrastructure. The data so needed to make the combination of those beauties as sustainable as possible, to provide not only the pleasure to our guests, but also to the satisfaction of our local residents, that in fact prove the old phrase we have in Slovenia that the tourism consists of people. But there is one thing we cannot measure. Slovenia is the only country in the world that has the word love in its name. It cannot be measured. We don't have the metrics, but it is the love to your profession, to your guests, to provide the best possible hospitality services that drives Slovenian tourism forward. And until we find the proper measure and proper metrics to measure love, I suggest that we agree on an, let's say, at least temporary measurement. I suggest that we acknowledge that Slovenian tourism is powered by 100% Slovenia. Thank you very much, and I wish you a great discussion and welcome the keynote speakers that will follow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Frangež, for your opening remarks. We are now ready to move into the second part of today's event. It is time for our keynote addresses. The first one will focus on how investments, innovations, and education build the tourism of the future. Please welcome on stage with generous applause Ms. Natalia Bayona, Executive Director of UN Tourism. Ms. Bayona, welcome on stage.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, State Secretary. Thank you so much, Director of the Tourism Board. Of course, to all the colleagues. I have to say that we have one Slovenian in UN Tourism, that is Nina, in the second row. Thanks to Nina as well. We're working together and we are here in this gathering thinking about the future of tourism. Eduardo, you're my partner today. And I have to say that I have to start with love, no? Because we are in the love country. So I loved your both interventions because it's a very nice mix. At the end of the day, today, in the world that we are facing, there are two challenges. The first one is artificial intelligence and how we use technology for good. And the second one is how we empower the most human economic sector, that is tourism. So how we bring humanity, how we bring the hospitality into the correct place to lead by example in a moment where we see a lot of geopolitical tensions, but at the end of the day, we see a lot of over-tourism. When I have to say that during these holidays, I made a lot of new friends from the media, because from all around the world, no matter where, from the New York Times, the Washington Post, to China Daily, so from all around the world, all the journalists have been asking the same. What will be the future of tourism without education? What will be the future of tourism without or with data? And you mentioned pretty well, you both. We have maybe the best sector, because it's a sector of the SMEs. It's a sector where 90% of the backbone to make this possible is thanks to SMEs, like this hotel. And at the end of the day, we need to invest properly to guide ourselves and to lead in a proper way. So Nina told me, and of course the government of Slovenia told me to share some views on how we see Slovenia today, of course with data. And I'm going to start by talking a little bit before. I don't know if... Now, so I will start before starting to speak about Slovenia. I am going to share some views on international tourism, where we are. So we need to understand, first of all, that of course the world is almost recovered, 89% of recovery, but our studies and barometer says that we expect 2 or 3 points of more growth this year in tourism. So as of today, 1.3 billion international arrivals, 1.7 trillion USD exports. This is really important. When you see what is happening in the world, when it comes to exports, goods are going down, investment in goods are going down, but investments in services are going up. And when we allocate all the services, tourism by far is the sector that is growing the most. So today we have a strong opportunity here. And of course, is still the 3.3% of the GDP. Where we are, our beautiful Europe allocates 55% of the whole tourism, international tourism. This is a strong responsibility because, of course, we are leading the way in this region. And we were discussing this morning that some of the emerging markets, for example, the Middle East that allocates 7%, or Asia and the Pacific 18%, the Americas 15%, they want to learn from Europe how to organize over tourism, how to organize and to plan urban tourism, how to plan short-term rentals. Maybe these discussions are not new for you, but for the other half of the world are new, because this phenomenon is coming today, thanks, of course, to the power that we are growing very rapid compared with other sectors. Then I have to say, if we jump here, yeah. So where is Slovenia? Basically, when we see the data of the National Office of the Republic of Slovenia, tourism in Slovenia is going really well, 4.7 million international tourism arrivals, fully recovery, and surpassed pre-pandemic levels in 18%. And the main markets, of course, we have the neighbors, Germany, Italy, Austria, Czechia, and 1 million overnight stays in Bled. So at the end of the day, what we see is, of course, really positive, 11% of growth. Thank you. And when it comes to the global ranking of competitiveness of the World Economic Forum, we can see that, of course, the country is number 42 from all the countries in the world. That's good. And from the region, we see countries like Poland, Hungary, and Bulgaria that have good performances as well. So at the end of the day, what we see here is a positive panorama, globally speaking and nationally speaking. And when it comes to investments, so in UN tourism, we really believe on the power of investments. So for the investment side, all the reports, all the data that we got is through a partnership with the Financial Times. So why I'm saying this? Because from the overall investments in the world in tourism, more than 80% of the investments goes to hotel accommodation. That's good, but that's not enough. We need to invest more in people, invest more in education, invest more in technology as a sector. And that's why I will start here the presentation about how we can connect the investments of the private sector, how we can create incentives of the private sector from the public in order to get integral and a 360 model of investments. So Slovenia, of course, have a very strong investment framework. During the last year, 2 greenfield projects were announced with 120 million investments developed in the country. The investments were made by Barceló, that, as all of us know, is a strong Spanish brand, Eduardo, and Delta Real Estate. So both, of course, correspond to accommodation, and they expect to create 230 jobs. That's good, because at the end, that's a message of certainty. And when we see the ranking of the Financial Times, where is the investment going in the Balkans and in Eastern Europe, we can see that, of course, Slovenia is really well known, and we have Slovenia in the top 10 of the ranking with, as I already said, 120 million the last year invested in tourism. The first one, if you want to know, is Poland. The second one is Montenegro. The third one is Romania. The fourth is Hungary. The fifth is Bulgaria. And the sixth is Albania. So why this is important? Because, of course, Slovenia has a strategic location. I already mentioned that the neighbors that are strong neighbors, Germany, Austria, Italy, are the ones visiting Slovenia. So the strategic location is crucial when it comes to investments and to promote investments to the private sector. So, of course, the port on the Adriatic Sea is crucial as well, because when investors are coming, they're not only thinking about building a hotel, it's the overall ecosystem. So, of course, having a port make easier a decision in terms that you can bring logistics through there, cruises through there, among others. Of course, the economic growth and stability. There's a GDP projected by 2%, and, of course, the attractive investment climate. There's a low taxation, 19% for corporate tax, and Slovenia ranks 37th from all around the world in the World Bank Index for doing business. So this is crucial, and maybe this is very much about global economics, but at the end of the day, tourism is an economic sector. So we need to bring these data all around if we want really to bring international brands, to bring international investors to the country. And then, of course, I am not going to talk about these, but I really love these, my dearest State Secretary and my dear Director of the Tourism Board. Maybe Slovenia is one of the most modern countries when it comes to digital transformation and the green transition incentives. Because normally speaking, what you hear about countries is that they want innovation, that they want to bring technology, but they don't have the correct incentives to bring them. Today, here in Slovenia, you have a very modern regulation. We need to use it. It doesn't matter that it's from the general framework, but for cloud computing, for big data, for artificial intelligence, there are incentives to bring tech companies here. And of course, tourism needs a lot of cloud, needs a lot, not only for the governments, but also to the SMEs, to be more modern, to be more efficient, to have their archives in the cloud, or as you were mentioning before, with artificial intelligence assistants. We are, in the UN Tourism, we are launching our new Tourism Academy with artificial intelligence teachers that will be able, of course, to be online tutors for people all around the world. But that's the power of technology, and having in Slovenia a strong incentive relief tax for these kind of companies is crucial, because at the end of the day, they are services. They represent, of course, a good connection and a good combination for the country. And, of course, we have different challenges. In Europe, we have a lot of challenges, of course. We need to generate in Europe added value tourism products, not only sand and beach, and not only being positioned by the short-term rentals that we have all around in the European Union, so that you have the north in the south and the south in the north. But now, due to climate change, maybe I want to be in the north. So maybe the things are turning in a different way. That is happening today in Spain. I don't know if you know. But the Spaniards don't want to go to the south because it's too hot. So the Spaniards, there is a change on the way they travel, and now they want to go to the beaches in the north, in Galicia, etc. So we need to generate tourism added value products, and to see what is happening today, to innovate, of course. The staff shortage, that's a strong mandate in the whole world. Tourism is the most human economic sector. Tourism is the strongest employer of youth, but 50% of youth working in tourism only have secondary skills. So how we can talk about a strong economic sector? And then in the European Union, I saw the last data of OECD, 2/3 of Europeans working in tourism only have secondary skills. So imagine, if 55% of the world comes here in this region that is supposed to be the mature region, but we don't have the proper skills, guess what happened next? Low salaries and informal economy. That's obvious, no? So that's why this is in the middle. Education has to be a must in every single thing that we do in this sector. It doesn't matter if we are in the private or in the public sector. And last but not least, of course, sustainability, how we're going to sustain this sector. And when I'm talking about sustainability, it's not only about climate change, how we're going to sustain the local economies, how we're going to sustain the traditions in a world where everyone can travel and everyone is global today. So, basically with this, of course, in UN Tourism, what do? We work, of course, in open innovation with the whole ecosystem, with the corporates, with the institutions, with the academia, of course, with the governments, with the startups, and with the investors. And, as I already mentioned, Slovenia has an innovation-driven economy. And Slovenia ranks 33 in the Global Innovation Index. That's good. From all around the world, you are in the top 50 of the top innovators. Of course, you have a strength, as I already mentioned. There's a strong public policy on developing technologies, on developing innovation, on bringing new services to the sector. And when it comes to venture capital, of course, is not as stronger, but that's our job together, UN Tourism and the government, to promote that these new venture capital funds come into the country to invest in those entrepreneurs, to invest in new technologies, so that we see that little by little the country is expanding the way in terms of investment and is not only going into traditional investments. So I saw, when I did a research with the team, we saw there are startups today, at the end of the day, technology is technology, thanks to startups and thanks to the youth working on technology. So we saw that, for example, there are Slovenian startups that are guiding the way, not only in Slovenia, but that they are exporting their services as well all around Europe. So, for example, Flexkeeping is the one that we saw. Is a housekeeping and staff collaboration software, so to make more efficient a service. And they have been funded by 800K. Nexto is another one, cultural augmented reality with gaming. That's really important. I don't know how many of you work in technology. I don't know how many of you are working, not for me, I am still young, but working for Generation Z. Generation Z doesn't want traditional things. And this is crucial because when I always go to a forum, no one is working on Generation Z. And Generation Z wants about what Slovenia is offering, wants gaming, wants augmented reality, wants artificial intelligence. They don't want the traditional book that I used to have when I used to travel with my dad and my family. What they want is immersive and new technologies experiences. So this is an example of how new technologies can help us, to bring together. And this one, pandemic, 400K funding, and basically is a word of mouth marketing tool. So at the end of the day, the ecosystem is there, The ecosystem is there. We have seen, of course, that there's the security, there's the confidence, there's the trust, the numbers are there. And by 2030, the Ministry of Economy, Tourism and Sports wants to have at least 476 startups per million inhabitants. So at the end of the day, is what I'm saying. The whole ecosystem is connected. We see evolution in the economics in Slovenia. We have the political commitment and we have the tools. So this is a very good, example. Slovenia can be a very good example on how other countries can guide the way, including European Union countries, where I don't see these kind of regulations. The regulations can be more generic. So at the end of the day, what we see is what can come next. So the main pillars, I already said, education, deep technologies, and green investments. So on education, basically, we need to work on the long-term provision of highly skilled and competent staff, not only in Slovenia, not only in Europe, in the world. Slovenia, of course, has invested, we were seeing, in more than 225 million euros in increasing digital competences. So again, it's a good example. And the good thing is that in the UN system, in UN tourism, in terms of education, that's our core. That is one of our main pillars. And in education, what we have, thinking about these challenges, is that in 5 days, we will launch, for example, the first bachelor's in international sustainable tourism with the University of Lucerne in Switzerland. But the magic of this is that the first year will be taught for the teenagers and for the students in Madrid. That is, of course, a strong place to study tourism. Second year is hybrid, and third year is in Switzerland. That's an example of the things that we are doing. The Online Academy is our online platform with more than 50,000 students from 100 nationalities. And what I was saying, we have more than 50 courses with the top universities from all around the world, from Cornell in the US to the Polytechnic of Hong Kong, all the Swiss, École Ducasse from France, all the Spanish, just to give examples of the universities. And they upload the content there, and it's a social impact project. So there are top universities from all around the world uploading content for free for the people, so the people can do courses there and can access to a certificate from UN Tourism and a good university. So at the end of the day, we are helping vocational people or people that works in tourism but that want to upskill themselves to get a strong certificate. We have different projects as well on creating academies. We are helping the government of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to create their own academy, to help vocational training. The same in Uzbekistan, in the Dominican Republic. Why I'm saying this? because, of course, this is a message to use us, no? If you want to be part of the programs, let us know. If I will desire to have, of course, Slovenian technologies here, Slovenian academies here working with us, because I know that we can really create something together. Second of all, in deep technologies, so how do we envision technology? I already said this. Slovenia ranks as third in Europe by economies driven by industrial businesses, which include, of course, companies where there's a digital transformation. And at the end of the day, I feel that today, when you go to different places, people know about artificial intelligence, but what I feel, this is my personal opinion, is that people don't know how to use it. Of course, ChatGPT is there, but how we use ChatGPT in the tourism industry to make it easier, and of course to have the good information and to have our ethics in place. So we're working here. We will launch it in London in the next World Travel Market, the first guidelines on how we use artificial intelligence for good. So to guide a little bit this conversation, because of course it's something new that is not regulated, so there's a very strong window open for innovation, but there's another window that can be open, of course, to make a crash if we don't do it correctly in an organized way. And last but not least, of course, green investments to sustain what we already mentioned. So in the case of Slovenia, again, Slovenia launched, this is really modern as well, believe it or not. As Slovenians, you need to be proud, but there are few countries in the world that has connections with the Ministry of Economy, where, in the case of Slovenia, in 2021, the country launched a sustainability bond. This is not every single day you don't see a country that is really connected with technology and green investments. So again, this is a very strong opportunity. So 1 billion euros were launched, of course focused on environmental, social goals, low carbon, transportation, green buildings, and from 2021 to 2026, Slovenia has a plan to support the green transformation, and of course, to create green investments. More than $200 million will be invested in renewable energies, in sustainable renovation of buildings. So at the end of the day, you can see, you know, I'm not a Slovenian. Maybe I will become a Slovenian after this presentation, but you both spoke about data and the power of data. That's good, you know. It's not that you and tourism is speaking about this. It's the data that is there and the results are there. So at the end of the day, we can say in UN tourism that Slovenia, of course, has demonstrated its potential. It's obvious, it's there. There is a strong regulation and a strong incentives on technology. There are strong incentives on the green transformation. There's a strong commitment on education. So today, of course, what we need to do is to activate all of this with all of you, because, of course, the tools are made by the government, but to be applied by the private sector. And, of course, to help those entrepreneurs to get involved into this green transformation, into the digital transformation, and, of course, to shape better the future of tourism and to guide and to lead the way about this beloved country. So thank you so much. I hope that this inspired you and that these facts makes you proud of Slovenia. I'm really proud of Slovenia, to be honest, because it's difficult in a world where we are to have these positive facts and figures and this commitment. So count on us, count on you and tourism, and of course, let's start our job, my dearest masters of ceremony. So thank you so much again.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bayona, for this presentation. I think we can all agree that we love this data. I will invite you back on stage very shortly, but before I do that, let's welcome our second keynote speaker, who will talk about how data and digital tools are transforming tourism in a post-COVID world and how the European Travel Commission is responding to the evolving landscape. Joining us on stage, let's welcome Mr. Eduardo Santander, Chief Executive Officer of the European Travel Commission. The stage is yours.
Dobar dan, dobro jutro, buongiorno, guten Morgen. I hope I haven't forgotten any linguistic minority or linguistic majority of this beautiful country of Slovenia. I belong to a family that always starts thanking the host, of course. Dear Secretary of State, I think you spoke out of your soul. I was very touched with your speech, without any prompt or any written paper in front of you. So you feel the love, we feel your love for your own country, and this is probably the strongest message that a Secretary of State of Tourism can pass, to stakeholders. Of course, I cannot move forward without thanking Maja for inviting me and for putting together with her professional team, Alenka, Carmen, Anna, just to mention, and of course, the new member of the team, Alma. By the way, probably none of you, many, you know what Alma told me this morning when I went for my walk around the lake? No. That an old tradition in Bled Lake is that if you marry in the Assumption of Mary Pilgrimage Church in the beautiful island in the Middle Lake, you have to carry your wife-to-be 99 steps, and she has to remain silent. Well, you tell me how that works, and I don't know if Alma has the answer for that. But Maja, I have to go back to you because you've been a real beacon of hope for our association. We had a general meeting very recently in beautiful Ljubljana. And when we talk about influencers, influencers here and there, and pictures there, and selfies and so on, you have been a real influencer, for many countries in Europe. You and your team, of course. This is a collective effort. And it makes me proud that, when I listen to Natalia, my dear friend Natalia, an esteemed colleague at UN Tourism, about how Slovenia, that arguably you say a small country, in between the Adriatic Sea and the Alps, not very well known, but you are the beacon for so many other countries. We get in Brussels a lot of requests about, from Chile, from Bhutan, say, can you send me the Slovenian strategy on sustainable tourism? And that should make you very proud, because this is a real influencing power that this country is having all around the globe. So, my dear colleagues, friends, and I was able to make a good few friends. Thank you, Alenka, for babysitting me last night. There's no best fitting place, to hold this conference. When we are going to be talking about new strategies for digital transformation, and you were the first. And the first always have the biggest difficulty to break the ice. And even if the Bled Lake doesn't freeze any longer, as I heard last time was, the lady from the restaurant told us last time this lake was frozen and was able for ice skating was back in 2012. So there's something happening out there that obviously it's showing some changes in our environment and the ways we work, in the ways we interact, and in the ways of civil society also. It started to perceive tourism, to the mentions of Natalia. Well, the STB's, the Slovenian Tourism Board's strategy for the digital transformation of Slovenian tourism, is the leading example of how NTOs can empower all stakeholders to adopt innovative digital strategies and tools to promote sustainable, high-quality visitors' experience and excellence interaction between locals and travelers alike. Now, there we go. Oh, same problem here. This battery runs pretty quick. Can you give me a click there? There we go. So don't worry, that's what happens when we talk about digitalization, innovation, and the clicker doesn't work. And so ETC, the European Travel Commission, it's a rather old organization. I was introducing myself to some of the, thank you, to some of the speakers. We've been around for 75 years, and it is an irony of history that when ETC was created back in 1948, out of the ashes of the Second World War, there was not some wise men and women. There were 2 women also in the room back then, so which is very important to mention nowadays and also back in the days. There were some people thinking that tourism can be a catalyst for innovation, for recovery, and for something very important, particularly for me, that is social cohesion. After the Second World War, we had a destroyed Europe with a lot of inequalities, with different economies running at different speeds, with countries that have been destroyed, countries with winners and losers. And there is a paradox that we live, obviously not in a post-war situation, but there is armed conflict in Europe again. We live until the threats, and I was paying attention about the program. I don't know if some of you had the chance to listen to some of the speeches of the forum, that we live in a world which is becoming complicated and challenging and full of unresolved conflicts and lack of cohesion. So I do truly believe, and I was saying this morning over breakfast during a chat with another speaker, that I remain very optimistic. Despite the, like Natalia being bothered her whole summer by New York Times and China Daily, willing to find the evil in tourism. Without tourism, we'll be in a much worse situation. Not only countries like Slovenia, but my very home country, Spain. It's still by far the industry of people, 10% of GDP, 25, 30 million jobs in Europe, and definitely, the biggest powerhouse for social cohesion of Europe. It is incredible that I went to cut my hair the other day, and my hairdresser told me he had been this summer in Spain, in Albania, and in Scandinavia, making like a little tour. How far have we come that, a barber can go on holiday, visit places, and so on? This is the product of modern democracies, of a lot of hard work, and we should not forget what the role of tourism has played in all these advances. So we have, since the beginning and the dawn of the internet, ETC started with the visit.com, Visit Europe. We were the first one like 20 years ago, 25. Then all countries started to copy worldwide the Visit domain. Then we were the first, with regards to access to data. As you know, Maja, we were the first, with creating a dashboard for tourism data. I will talk about that later. But, our role has been and is today to be that avenue for NTOs, DMOs, stakeholders from the private sector, to have a safe haven of conversation, of cooperation, exchange of best practices, and definitely collaboration. We knew, and I would not like to talk too much about pandemic. It always hit that kind of negative button in our bodies, that we learn to work together, forced by bad conditions, and we should not repeat that in a sense that. Now there is a lot of, again, competition, again, not willing to share, and this is something that we need to tackle. Now, as outlined in our strategic framework, and this is something, by the way, that it's available to all of you, our current mission of ETC is to ensure that Europe is the world's most competitive, sustainable, and inclusive destination by 2030. We believe that digitalization and access to data will be powerful tools in achieving this goal. Okay, this is not a secret, but the problem is, how are we going to do this? This is a nice claim, a nice mission, like we always have these kind of things. How are we going to do this? Well, let me give you, it's working now. Let's look back a little bit, and I'm going to admit a huge mistake that we did after the pandemic. After the pandemic, we were all in crisis mode, and we wanted to fill our hotels, to keep our stakeholders, our local population, our citizens pleased, and go back to normality, go on holiday, spend money. Well, we make a wrong estimation. We thought that people will travel like crazy for 2, maximum 3 years after pandemic, And they did. And if you see the numbers, from 50% of global share, we're already at 55, and the trend is non-stop. So we thought that people will stop traveling because the money will run out, because inflation will kill asset killing by de facto people's savings and prospects. But we didn't count with something, the power that tourism has on people, and that we discovered that people are willing to save in other aspects of their lives. They don't go for dinner at home, like outside, or, but going on holiday is still a sacred thing to do, and they prefer to save money for that and to keep doing that. So now it's a matter of how are we going to face this exceeding, on average, pre-pandemic levels of tourism, which is perceived and reported by media as a pejorative thing. Or it's like practically tourism is becoming a scapegoat of many problems that had been there. We talk about the problem of housing. We think that it's all related to tourism. There was a problem with housing and with real estate starting 25 years ago, where nobody was talking about over-tourism. We were only talking about growth and jobs at that time. So we have to also develop mechanism of defense of our own industry, and also justifying scientifically, empirically, and in a way that we can demonstrate the value in economical terms, in social terms, and definitely also in the contributions that we do to the cohesion that I was referring before. So from the slide, you see that we have Natalia depicted us with a graphic there. We have surpassed the levels of the pre-pandemic. This perception is in some countries very different. There is an disbalance. This is not equally in the whole geography of Europe. Some countries are doing very well. Some countries are not doing great, or they could do better. And the problem that we have is a very, very, very old problem in Europe, that it's like people go to the same places at the same time. We keep increasing capacity in the air, we keep increasing, but it's a bottleneck effect. So how do we tackle this? Well, let me move forward again. Oops, yeah, very good. One of the things that ETC is doing to tackle this issue is to transform the visitor experience. And here we have to go back to the strategy of Slovenia with regards to it's going to be the outcome of all these investments, all these trainings, all these upskilling tools that the governments are also pushing forward. Today's travelers expect a seamless experience and just in only one click. Just Alma telling you what to do in Bled this morning. NTOs and DMOs must embrace digital and data-driven strategies to provide visitors with the convenience, novelty, and security that they are increasingly looking for. So data is giving us three major topics right now. First, and you see it on the slide, but I would like to give you a little more some insights. It's giving you personalized recommendations. It tackles your IP address, it gets, from all your cookies, your interests, what you shop, what you get, and, it creates a persona out of you and give you the best possible experience. According to a recent study available to all of you, 6% of intra-European travelers are already using regenerative artificial intelligence programs on AI-based itineraries creators. The tools are still very rudimentary. You're still not finding that kind of very connection with the bot. It's still like that. But, there is a huge progress and prospect there. Another insight concerning the personalized recommendation is these tools should aim to help travelers explore beyond the hotspots, which is also a way to shift. And Maja, if you remember, in one of our studies recently, what we are trying is to shift the roles of NTOs in the years to come into keep promoting in a different way, involving the famous or infamous triangle of visitors, residents, and entrepreneurs alike, and management destinations rather than promoting them only. It has to be a very balanced act here, particularly in rural areas. I was surprised to see 1 million visitors Bled, but I'm sure that 10, 12 kilometers north, south, or east, there's people here, I could need some tourists here, like in my valley or in my winery or in, So we also have to tackle that it's not always as it looks like. Secondly, giving tourists access to more information about their destination could improve 3 major aspects that influence a lot where people go on holiday. First is safety, accessibility, and planning. I don't know if you have planned a holiday recently for yourself. I'm sure you were on holiday this summer, some of you for sure. And it's becoming increasingly annoying, to by the time you have booked everything. I have, young children. By the time you have picked your flight, your room, your activity, and so on, I don't know. Despite the fact that obviously it's becoming more expensive, it's also difficult, to put all the pieces together and then having a great time at the end of the day. So some examples of this giving tourists access to more information are real-time access to weather and transport data, how that could help travelers better plan their trip. We know from winter destinations that, it's becoming very tricky for them to plan because people see the weather apps, something that we didn't have like 10, 15 years ago. If you booked a ski holiday, you went no matter what. It was raining, hail, shine, or no snow, like sometimes is the case now. But now people decide maybe a week before whether they are going to go to Slovenia for skiing or not. And that creates a problem also for the entrepreneurs and for the stakeholders here. The data also can improve travelers' perception of security, allowing them to avoid extreme temperatures. We saw in the Mediterranean basin, the Adriatic. Maja was reporting that the Adriatic has been pretty warm, and that warming of the sea, has also its impact here in the mountain regions. And we had the horrible floodings and floods last year with the catastrophic consequences that they have. Third, accessibility to healthcare care and information. Some people are starting to worry about, their medical conditions, or so they want to. Moreover, the issue of accessibility, because with sustainability, we have forgotten that, more than 2 billion people in the world live with any kind of accessibility issues or any kind of thing. Plus their family and friends, so that's a lot of people. And we have to convert that into a business possibility when it comes to accessibility. And accessibility doesn't mean that you are on a wheelchair. Of course, that's a case of accessibility. It means many other things. It can be that you are traveling intergenerationally with elderly people and children at the same time. And finally, as you see, we found more information about location, historical sites, and cultural landmarks. So what we call immersive experience. Some best practices that I'm actually next week in Dublin, as they are finally putting the theory on practice. So they are some destinations are using virtual reality, artificial augmented reality experiences, and just to create this immersive experience in destinations in a way that hasn't been done before. It's pretty much in an interactive but also hybrid way, whereas you are visiting the place at the same time, and there is a huge engagement. So you see, what we're good at ETC is putting together best practices so that others can learn from there, and also pass the information available, to develop technological solutions. But data can also improve resident satisfactions. I think we could talk, and I can talk a lot, but I can talk over and over about the resident satisfaction, how this is now affecting the environment of tourism businesses. And as we know, in recent years, dissatisfaction among residents about how tourism has been steadily growing in central popular destinations, needless to mention the Venices, the Barcelonas, the Amsterdams, whatever. And I would like to give you an analogy, because I'm sometimes very, very reluctant to talk about a problem that is only ours. I remember when I was a child, I could play on the street because there were no cars. We would play football on the street. That's where some Spanish players are good, is because they learn to play football not in a pitch. They learn to play in a plaza, in a piazza, in a square, where it's tricky and you have to dribble other people passing, the police can run behind you, and, so you get faster. But what happened with in the 80s and 90s, we saw an increase of cars in the European roads by 80%. So it was not like we doubled it, we increased it by 80%. And that had a lot of consequences on regulation, order, infrastructure, and let me place some rules and sometimes even fines. And this is where tourism is going, in my opinion, is that, we have to create a new frame. We're not going to tell people, you cannot travel. We had that in the pandemic and nobody liked that. We can also be in the airport with, someone from the tourism board looking at the tourist, you look like a good tourist, come in. Go back, we don't want you because you're coming here for, trampling and drinking and, disturbing the local order. You see, this is a concept of, of scalability, of something that goes beyond. This is an interdisciplinary problem that we have to solve in a multi-stakeholder approach, like the Secretary of State was mentioning before, that we need really to work together. Not only we have to leave our silo of, tourism is the best for humanity, a catalyst for peace. It is, of course it is. But we need to talk also from people, from the transportation, infrastructure, energy, because it goes beyond that. How, obviously, this technology is going to help us and is with new metrics. Measure the positive impacts of tourism has been one of the most difficult exercises because, it's that kind of intangible. It's the love of, I feel, Slovenia, okay? How do you measure the love? How big is your love? We don't know. We don't know unless you ask people, unless you really say, did you really enjoy your stay here? What did it bother you? Was that ice cream not good enough for you tonight or last night? Or, what is it that is it? Was it the hotel maybe not speaking your language or, you didn't get what you wanted? We're becoming also all very demanding. And again, let me tell you something, going back to the traffic and cars. When we are in traffic and we say we are stuck in traffic, what we are saying is you are traffic too. You are not stuck in traffic, you are inside the car. And you are part of the traffic, the same way that when you are in an overcrowded, in an over-tourism labeled destination, you are also a tourist. No matter how much money you have, or no matter what you are doing. So you are also part of the problem and part of the solution. And we have to stop, trying to blame someone else. Now there is a trend to blame sharing platforms, Airbnb and co. Listen, they're sharing the problem and they're sharing the consequences of what overcrowding and the real estate and the housing problem. But the housing problem has been existing for 35 years in many places. First in London and Paris, they started blaming the foreign investors. First there was the Russian oligarchs. Then they were the rich Arabs coming there. And now, they need to find someone else, to blame. So the real estate problem is part of a consequence and part of a problem that it has to be tackled, of course. And I will talk about this because it's one of the points. So metrics such as revenue brought in by the tourism sector. How much does how much of this revenue stays in Bled today? How do we measure the leakage? When you book a holiday to Slovenia, how much of that private investment of a family of 4, 5, or 6 coming to Slovenia is really staying here in Bled in the region? Metrics. Number of jobs in the tourism industry and public investment in tourism-related infrastructure. Slovenia, clear case of fact-checking. You knew that, the tourism was increasingly growing and you needed bigger roads, you needed bigger, newer infrastructure, you need to, to modernize your hotels and so on and so forth. On a narrower scale, datification could help to solve some of the biggest individual concerns of local and tourism hotspots. And here, a couple of examples, talking about sharing platforms, Airbnb. Probably you are familiar, especially those in policy making and in governmental roles. And the EU passed legislation to improve transparency and data sharing between short-term rental hosts and public authorities. So there was like a very wild jungle when all these platforms became. But, Barcelona has banned them, New York has no, And I think prohibition is not the solution. The housing market and the protecting of the housing market for locals in popular destinations is going to be key. Because, this is one of the big problems now, that the people perceive tourism as their problem not to be able to access to a proper house or apartment and so on. And the fact is that tourism is not the consequence of that, or it's not the cause of this. But we are perceived as being the only problem. The housing has been there for many, many places, particularly in capital cities of Europe. Third, and I'm going to speed up a little bit, collecting more data about the movements of tourists around destination could also be effective in mitigating crowding and congestion. Again, classic example, many of you are a good neighbor country, Croatia, the city of Dubrovnik, had a state-of-the-art system on telling you how many people are at the place, when the cruise liners are disembarking, how many people are in the main citadel, and making this data available through an online platform. It's as easy as it is. I'm not going to go now because there's too many people, so I'm going to wait an hour doing something else. So things like, again, technology can really provide. Now, I'm speeding up a little bit. Data is also powerful in green transition. Of course, this is all very obvious. By how, what is the potential of this? One of the things that it's bothering me personally and at the same time challenging me a lot is the measurement of CO2 emissions in tourism. Because this is probably one of the most difficult exercises scientifically wise speaking, because it's, how do you define tourism? I know there's an Italian gentleman here, but with no disrespect to any Italians, tourism is like a lasagna. Everybody likes lasagna, okay? I know very few people. Some people that don't eat meat, they put like mozzarella and broccoli and stuff. Anyway, but everybody likes lasagna, okay? It's a dish that everybody likes. And I always define tourism as like a dish of lasagna. It's layers after layers of things. You have accommodation, transportation, you have the locals, you have the visitors, you have the entrepreneurs, you have the education factor, you have the investment, you have the energy, okay? And layers after layers you create. And believe it or not, every lasagna in every single household is different. You have that kind of, I put Parmesan in between, or I put pepper, or whatever. And in every destination, everybody puts a different ingredient, and that's what it makes it so complicated to make that a size that it's gonna, or that dish is gonna fit everybody. That's an hoax. That's not gonna happen. Therefore, we have put at ETC a huge emphasis in scientifically measure CO2 emissions in tourism. How much do we really cost? How much do we cost directly by tourism stakeholders? And also study what is the environmental impact of it, and how much is inherent to human activity. It's not, we have to heat places in winter, but if we count as the hotels are only producing CO2 because they are heating their pools, but some hotels, and in Slovenia, no, because I talked to Itzok, I don't know if he's in the room, from there you are, from the thermal, that, some of these hotels use the thermal water for, for the heating, for the pools, for the treatments, everything. So you see, we have to be careful how we measure. And we are putting a lot of money on establishing a real reputation for Europe as the most green destination scientifically, not the same, because until recently everybody was very able to say, I'm the most sustainable and the greenest and remember all this hotel with this little signs on the door. You say, this is one certificate, one label, and after COVID it was even crazy. They have like the COVID safe, not COVID safe. It was crazy. But now we need to find a common ground. Here I have to mention again, of course, Slovenia, because we need to empower travelers to travel responsibly. We can stop putting all the pressure on the supply chain and say it's the hotels that make them press, as 85% of European entrepreneurship are SMEs, and in Slovenia it's 90. So, and we need to put some responsibility on the travelers too. We are all human beings capable to understand, learn, educate ourselves, and change. And at a certain point, we have to tell people, it's not in a prescribing way, it's in telling them that, if they in the future they want to travel, they will have to change their behavior. So we have a new upcoming, sorry, I forgot to mention, obviously this is practically the concept of the green scheme of Slovenian tourism. And if I may admit that we copy a little bit in a nice way, the trend there, and we are having a new upcoming ETC marketing campaign based on responsible travel. At a certain point, we have also to address sustainable behavior. Now, last, I was mentioning this before, how is ETC supporting datification? And this is most of the whole thing is accessible to all of you, as we're a public-private organization, but mostly financed by public money and the EU. We have an ETC executive dashboard accessible to all of you, and if not, via your national tourism brand in cooperation with UN Tourism, with WTTC, Tourism Economics, where you can see in real time, have access to and data sharing all the time. For us, is that we also are participating in building the European data space for tourism, so to stop working everybody in its own lasagna of data, and we're trying to make a European lasagna. Let's see how it tastes. And second, of course, the digital upskilling that it was mentioned in the previous presentation, and referring to Natalia, who has been, of course, very instrumental to embed education in the UN tourism policies. The lack of knowledge, of course, and access to upskilling opportunities is one of the biggest deterrents. It's an investment this long term, and this is the problem. We want to have everything now. And if you invest now in education, you'll get the fruits of it when many of us maybe will not be, at least in our positions around. Now, and closing. I'm going to close this with a message of hope, of optimism, and I'm pledging you to think about it. It's what we call in Belgium rentrée, so we are going back to school, we're going back to work, after our summer break, and some time to think about what we're doing, if it makes sense or not. The chain is as strong as its individual link. So we cannot invest in one of them only, because the moment there is one link, the chain will break. And the solution, as I say, for all our problems come from this kind of interdisciplinary working groups. I'm going to end with my famous lasagna, okay? My famous lasagna has 10 ingredients that I would like to pass, and this is what at ETC we'll try to pass to our members. First ingredient, okay? Take notes. Certify and monitor scientifically. You need to back up your data with, universities, with peer reviews. You cannot rely on one source or one measurement. That doesn't work. Because normally we tend to believe what is good for us. It's like with the media. You tend to read the news that you like. The other ones you don't read. Cultivate the workforce. People first. People first. Prioritize communities. If you are going to have a new strategy for tourism, if you're going to do anything in Bled, in Slovenia, you have to talk to the people first. Actively involve with them. That it has to be like a common voice from the civil society. Align visitors. I said what I was saying. The visitor has to be addressed in a way that we haven't done before. We were like prescribing them. You remember in the days we went to a travel agent with a catalog. Here's the menu. Choose. Cruise in the Baltics, French Riviera, Cancun, whatever it was. And now it's not like that. We have to align them in their decision. Protect heritage, protect nature. This is the, climate change is now undeniable, and it's about, if you don't have the resources, whether it's, your natural resources or heritage, you have nothing. You can have the people, but you don't have nothing to show. Produce and consume responsible. This starts from home. It's not only in the restaurants. It's, it doesn't make sense to go to a super nice, sustainable restaurant if you at home, you keep not acting responsibly. Calibrate infrastructure. That's one of my favorite ones, because sometimes you don't need to reinvent the wheel, or you don't need to build new hotels. You just, to calibrate it in a way, how much residents, how much visitors are you expecting, and, what you have to offer them. Govern effectively. This I have to look at you, Mr. Secretary of State, because we need people like you, with the courage to mention things by their names, and not starting to say, okay, this is a political cycle of 4 or 5 years, and then whoever takes over, So we need more of that. We need more of things. And the most important thing in looking into the future is embed resilience. That we've been there, it's a crisis after crisis, and, we need to learn from there and act responsibly, upon them. I have the feeling that we have forgotten the pandemic and, everything is valid again, whatever we saw. Remember those times in pajamas in front of Zoom calls saying, we're going to change the world, we're going to wake up and, everybody's going to be, living in a magical unicorn, Lipizzaner world. So thank you very much for your patience and for your attention. Voila.
Thank you very much, Mr. Santander, for this keynote speech. We were planning a little Q&A session with our panelists, but time is not on our side, so we will just move on to the next part. And in the end, if you will have a question for Ms. Bayona or Mr. Santander, you will be able to ask a question to them, address your question to them as well. But now we are moving to the final part of today's panel. With 4 esteemed speakers, we will explore today's topic. So please join me on stage and let us welcome them with a warm applause. Ms. Dubravka Kalin, Director General of the Directorate of Tourism. Ms. Apolonija Oblak Flander, Director General of the Statistical Office of the Republic of Slovenia. Mr. Erwin Hinteregger, Chief Executive Officer at the IDM South Tyrol, coming from Italy. And last but not least, Mr. Tobias Pogorevc, the CEO of Helvetic Airways, traveling to us from Switzerland. Thank you, dear guests, for being here. I will open this panel with a question for Ms. Kalin. In 2022, Slovenia adopted its current tourism strategy, and it identified 12 key challenges. One of them is improving data-based decision-making. We saw some critical numbers before in the earlier presentations regarding this. What are the most important measures needed to address the gap in this area?
Thank you very much, Martina, for your questions. So I would say when I started to work in tourism, there was one old saying, location, location, location in tourism. I'm not saying it's not important, but I think we are coming in the era when we will start to say data, data, data. Because what we really want in Slovenia, and we recognize that in our strategy 22-28, that we expect to adopt data-driven decisions in destination management organization, in companies, but of course it's a little bit easier to say that to do it actually. So we started with simple steps across different sectors, and of course the Ministry of Economy, Tourism and Sport is only one of the many players and institutions in the whole area. But I would like to emphasize that the Slovenian tourism is now coming in to the point that storytelling and just inviting tourists, it's not enough. So we really need to start with data intelligence, with measuring things, because what you measure, you can improve. And first of all, you can manage it. And in our strategy, it's very important destination management, and now we are making big steps on that area. But of course, it needed to be supported also with data intelligence. So I'm really happy that together with STB, with Slovenian Tourist Board, also with the Statistical Office of Republic of Slovenia and other stakeholders, we started developing if you ask me, a very important business intelligence tool, which is called National Information Center. And I expect that this will make much easier for destinations and providers to make data-based decisions in their business. Because otherwise we will have to face really some hard consequences.
Thank you. My next question goes to Ms. Oblak Flander, but before I said the question, let me congratulate you sincerely on the 80th anniversary of the Statistical Office of the Republic of Slovenia celebrated this year. So let's go to today's topic. This year, the Statistical Office of the Republic of Slovenia launched a new interactive tool, Tourism Daily. Could you share with us what kind of data, what kind of indicators, what kind of insights are offered within this tool, and what do you see as a future possible advancements?
Thank you for the question, and thank you for these nice congratulations. We are very proud that we are already 80 years present in the Slovene territory and that we are a very good partner. And I was looking at the rankings where Slovenia is, where it comes to figures, and I must say that when it comes to the openness of data, we rank the 6th in the world. And when it comes to statistical performance index, we also rank the 6th in the world in the 2022. So I would say that this interactive tool that we have built is based on what we have been doing in the past and listening very careful to the user's needs. So this counter is not a simple counter of arrivals or overnight stays. It brings a lot of descriptive statistics and also accumulates data over the year on a daily basis, only with a 3 days delay. This product was developed to support the Slovene tourism, to be able to model the flows, to forecast, and also to give local destinations information what is going on in their locations, to be able to better manage and to respond to the tourism, what is going on in tourism. And most importantly, these data are presented according to the citizenship of guests that are arriving. They're presented on the statistical regions, municipalities, where the statistical confidentiality allows us to present the data, and also by type of accommodation. And most important thing is that these data are directly comparable with monthly accommodation statistics. So the same methodology is applied to the data on like near real-time data that we disseminate in official statistics, which means that these data are also comparable with other countries. So this is a big advantage, and the thing is that these data are accessible to everybody for free. And I was asking my colleagues to do some statistics about this interactive tool that we have produced. And unfortunately, we had so far, we launched it on the 15th of March, only 5,000 individual, let's say, approaches to this interactive tool. So meaning that we have to do more to bring our products, to build those bridges to the users, to be able to use our data for their decision making.
Mm-hmm. Can we maybe check with our audience who used this tool up until now? Hands up.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're pretty good, but we can do better. So everybody else, please, right after the panel, you're kindly invited to check it out. Now we are turning to Italy. Mr. Hinteregger, you come from IDM South Tyrol. You focus on sustainable economic development. You support SMEs. You manage tourism marketing, regional product promotion. Can you briefly share what your organization does, what is your vision, and maybe speak especially about the importance of collaboration among different stakeholders?
Well, first of all, let me shout out a compliment to Slovenia in general. I'm really impressed by this conference but especially by the development of the country in the last, let's say, couple of decades. It's a great example of integration, but also of contributing to future development, and you guys are doing a great job here. You're about 2 million people. Small country, we have 500,000 people. In a pretty big country, 60 million, so very small region. But of course, we're also trying to do or to make our contribution. So the job of EDM is basically we are the regional development company for South Tyrol. So we work across all sectors, tourism of course, but also agriculture, also technologies, construction, food, whatever the important sectors are in South Tyrol. And our core vision we have defined as to be and we can debate that, to be the most sustainable habitat in Europe. So we don't talk about destination any longer. We talk about habitat, so a living space. There's a nice German word, Lebensraum, which doesn't translate as nicely in other languages, but it's basically first, it's the locals. So it's really about first to make sure whatever you develop is in syntony or in symbiosis with the local people. So the vision in our for us is really that first we make sure that the people living actually in South Tyrol, that they are happy there, that there is a high quality of life. And of course to do that we focus basically on 4 areas in our company. Number 1 is sector development. So in tourism we have written like about 4 years ago a new tourism strategy, which is really a completely turnaround, let's say a transformation of tourism. I'm happy to talk about. Second, so sectors, different sectors. Second, digital transformation. Third, sustainability. Fourth, internationalizations, also export and so on and so forth. It's a variety of things. But of course, we're here today to talk more about tourism. And we have defined, as I said, a couple of years ago, a new vision for the tourism. And that vision is really based on 3 values. Number 1, it's the people, so the culture, to make sure that we maintain that local culture. Second, it is about in symbiosis with nature, so of course everything to do with climate change. Third is innovation and a lot about digital and data, of course. And fourth is what you mentioned, collaboration. Because if there's one thing unique to the sector of tourism, I think it's the one and only that needs the most collaboration, not only within, but across every other sector. And we cannot forget that, and that's not easy, right? So I work also with the industry, and so most of the issues we have in industry, I don't know, automotive is quite important. In our region, it's very much a sector thing, right? But when you talk about tourism, it crosses every sector. And mostly it's about the local people. So we heard about over-tourism. I like to call it more overcrowding because in our region it's more about certain spots at certain times in the year. But collaboration is at the very base, and so also one of the main job, if not the most important job of my organization, is to enable dialogue. Enable dialogue across the sectors, create synergies across the sectors, but also with the locals, with the people. And so that's not easy. As you can imagine, there's a lot of different conflicts. And I just give you one example. So as part of the new tourism strategy, actually the government, so we recommended, and the government ultimately approved a new law to put a cap on beds. So in South Tyrol, you cannot add more beds. The total number is 240,000 beds. So just for you to give a sense, I saw before 4.7 million guests in Slovenia. In South Tyrol, you have 8 million guests. So you have 4 times more inhabitants here than we have. And we have more guests, almost double than Slovenia. So we're a little bit a victim of our own success. So a lot of our job now is how do we channel the tourism. We don't want to grow any more quantitatively. It's all about more qualitative and more sustainable and more experience in the product which you offer. But putting a cap on beds that you can basically not add more beds or let's say basically interfere in the free market, as you can imagine, is not very easy, but we strongly believe that's the way to go.
Mm-hmm. So I'm staying with you, talking about the management of tourism flows. South Tyrol has used a guest card system for 18 years to enhance visitor experiences. Can you tell us how you use the data from this guest card system to improve the experience, manage the tourism flows?
Yeah, it's a long project. We are right in the middle, let's say, of the next evolution of this project. It started about 18 years ago, very much locally, so different areas actually developed their own kind of guest card. But the main service, the main goal of a guest card is really to improve the guest experience. So really to basically enable the guest to plan their travel, to basically be also a companion as they are in South Tyrol, and especially to kind of avoid overcrowding and so on and so forth. The basic service, which is included, that you will get free public transport. So you get to South Tyrol, every accommodation will give you this guest card. It's now digital, and so you can jump on a public transport. This is a bus, a train, and you can get a free ride. That's a nice service. It's being paid by the hotel accommodation themselves. As you can imagine, a lot of debate with the locals. Why are getting the tourists a free transport, and we locals have to pay for the transport, right? So this is not an easy. So if you think about, I don't know, if you develop something similar in Slovenia, think about that. But the service is really good because one of the goals also inside of the future vision of our tourism is to get people, of course, more off-roads. So in South Tyrol, 44% of the CO2 footprint is from traffic. And also the government of South Tyrol actually declared and set a goal to be carbon neutral in 2040. So all European countries are actually 2050, we 2040 as well. You can imagine how much dialogue that is creating. How are we going to get there? So of course, in tourism, mobility is the issue, at least in our region, because there's a lot of mountains, and I imagine quite similar also Slovenia. So one thing to give actually free public transport is also to basically motivate guests who come to South Tyrol to leave the car at home. So we also work on basically the arrival. We have several cooperations with the Deutsche Bahn, Austrian Bahn, Trenitalia, to actually try to get people on the train to South Tyrol. Very difficult, right? Because you have to influence behavior and so on and so forth. And then on site, we also have like a last mile shuttle implemented. We have car sharing. And then, of course, this guest card to get people actually around on public transport. And I have to say that the region has done a great job. I actually lived half of my life in other countries around the world. But in every tiny village, you will have every hour a bus going up and down or a train. So that the public transport is really good. And so one of the ways we actually use the data from the system, because now it's all digitalized, so we know how many people are jumping on a bus, how many people are actually using this guest card, is to try basically what we call guest visitors flow. Highly complicated, very much analytical, a lot of bunch of data we have. We're working together with the university and scientists to basically, a lot of data prediction, so you can actually predict at certain point in time when you're going to have an accumulation of people at certain points, to actually then, with a recommendation engine, we built in the last few years a digital ecosystem with a bunch of digital tools that then allows you also to personalize the recommendation. Don't go to Bolzano, because we know when it's raining, everyone wants to go to Bolzano to shop, or don't go to the Praxa Vildsee, which is the Lago di Braia, similar to Bled, very, very nice lake. Where we also have implemented in recent years some other things, because there are just too many people going in there just to take a picture. So there's a lot of data, but there's two things, also my experience from other sectors previously. Data isn't enough. Data is just the first step. You need a lot of tools and technologies with advancing at incredible speed. Every 5 years there's new technologies. And you need especially manpower, so skills, people who can actually do something with the data, right, to implement that. And that's really where our focus is. We have plenty of data. We have organized of the data. We have open data hubs. All the DMOs are connected. They have access to all the data. But the difficult thing is to activate the data. And with this digital guest card, it actually first time allows us to personalize the recommendation, to tell a guest, don't go to this location, to that location. We recommend alternatives. So with that, we can somewhat start to basically also guide a little bit, especially the overcrowded areas.
Thank you. So that's data working in practice. Turning to Mr. Pogorevc, you come from aviation industry. How do you see the data collection and processing shaping the future of air travel? And which strategies are airlines adopting to stay competitive.
Thank you very much. Hvala lepa. Preden povem nekaj na data collection in aviation, bi se vam zahvalil, da sem lahko tukaj. Kot Švicar s slovenskim korenimi sem zelo vesel, da lahko danes delim moje skromne izkušnje. So this was the most difficult part. So data management in general, this is happening. It's not something about the future. Just let me see what I did, the whole value chain when I came here. I booked my ticket. They knew if some guy 4 days before buys a ticket, wants to go to Ljubljana, he needs to pay a good price. So the ticket was quite expensive. So I come on Sunday morning, it was announced on the message, on the app, that the flight will have another gate. So I could be there right on time. I arrived right on time in Ljubljana, and then actually I wanted to go to Piran, because it was only 10 o'clock in the morning. I use Google Maps, and I see 2 hours drive to Piran. So it's a little bit too long for me, just for a one-day trip. So I decided to refresh some childhood memories and go to Postojna. So I opened the website of Postojna, and then I see, there are a few tickets left for the 12 o'clock tour. Not 10 tickets, only 2 tickets were left. So I thought, okay, that's great. I need 45 minutes by car with Google Maps. I arrived there 11:45. I buy the ticket online, and I can visit this beautiful cave without any queuing. So I was really impressed how these channels, how the tourist flows were channeling. So it really happens. But there is a little room of improvement, because they didn't announce that it's so cold in the cave. I had only a T-shirt, and the 1 hour was actually quite cold. But let's go back to the aviation, because we contribute quite a lot to the tourism. And for our company, a little private company, AI data management is one of the strategic pillars. We collect a lot of data, but not only from the customers, but from the flight operation, from weather radars, from whoever data that is available. And to give you a quick overview, our modern aircraft, the E2, collects 1.5 gigabyte raw data per flight hour. You can imagine with the fleet of 22, it's tremendous, the data that we could have to analyze. So there are some estimations that only aviation will generate in the year 2026 96 billion of gigabyte data. So for what can we use that? And now to your question. One is operational efficiency. We use a lot of data. We heard this morning when we briefed, you had a lot of turbulences coming here. The plane was delayed. We all have the picture in mind when the Austrian Airlines flight tried to land in Vienna, came in a hailstorm, was completely destroyed. Using data efficiently, we can optimize flight routes. Be more on time. Furthermore, planes, they were operated by human beings. And the big risk today is the so-called fatigue. So how do we make flight schedules that the crew is not fatigued, that they can perform? And last but not least, how can we reduce emissions? This is a very important point. So with the efficient use of data, we can increase reliability, safety, and reduce emissions. But you as a customer, what do you have from it? If we know you, we know what kind of product we can offer to you. We can assess how many times we have to fly to Ljubljana from Zurich. Is 1 flight enough, or 2 flights per day, whatever? So these are the data we can use, and we can streamline the offers that we give to the passengers who want to make vacation here in Slovenia. And last but not least, I said sustainability challenges, the aviation industry as well. We committed to net zero 2050. One is use modern aircraft. This will reduce the emissions by about 25%. The second thing would be single European sky. We still operate like in the late 60s, not modern like in the new millennium. And last but not least, we estimate that efficient data management will reduce emissions by additional 5%. So if this is not a good reason of using it, let's go for it.
So these are all the opportunities. What is one biggest challenge that you see to this actually all becoming true?
As I said, it's on the technical side, it's a tremendous amount of data. So we work with the ETH, the Technical University of Zurich, to streamline the data. And of course, the operator, all the Boeings, Airbuses, they give you hints, but they just use a part of the data. So we use artificial intelligence to know when we have to replace things. Maybe you know 30% of all the delays on the airfield, on the airport, are caused by short-term maintenance actions. 30%. If you can use data analytics to prevent that, we can be more efficient. So it's the quantity of the data, and then from the consumer side, the data protection laws, of course.
Thank you. Coming back to Ms. Kalin, we mentioned already today the protests happening around the world in regards to mass tourism and Slovenia wanting to stay boutique, green, connected with nature, with local communities. How can and how will Slovenia use data to balance, on one hand, attracting tourists and on the other hand, preserving and maybe even increasing the quality of life of local communities?
Well, I think that Slovenia chose the great moment to adopt the strategy that we are not chasing records anymore. Of course, we count arrivals and so on, and it's important. The numbers on the economic levels are important, of course, because tourism, at the end of the day, is business. So numbers are important. But on the other hand, I don't like to emphasize that we are a small country, but I'm rather proud of it, that we are really small, and so this is one more reason why we really need to be careful with our resources. Of course, all those data, Apolonija taught me when I was, I think, just 2 or 3 weeks the ministry, that we are one of the most measured country in the world. That we have 200 and more databases, some of them also silos of information because we don't use it. And this is our problem. We hope at least a little part of it we will manage to solve with all our efforts together with Slovenian Tourism Board and also the Statistical Office of Slovenia. What I'm trying to say is that we caught the right moment to start think differently. It's not so important that we get millions of guests, but we want to have guests that are friendly to our destination and to our people. Of course, as I mentioned, we are counting arrivals and so on. But I think that in the near future, we will really need to be more careful about community sentiment about tourism. Because in tourism you can measure many things. Of course, the economic impact, the environmental impact, and many other things. But I think this community sentiment will be one of the most important if we want to build the tourism as we wrote in our strategy. But, of course, the devil hides always in the details. I worked for 11 years in a small destination management organization. And at the end of the day, when somebody just said the S from the word of statistic, I said, come on, don't bother me with that. Because I have no money, I have no human resources to do that. So let's just do the tourism as we know it. We have a feeling, we know how to do it. but feeling will not be enough for the future. So that's why I really hope that all together we will manage 2025, the tool that will help us all to do better and more controlled and managed tourism in Slovenia.
Thank you. Ms. Oblak, Flander, do we already measure the sentiment of the local communities in tourism?
Not yet, but we are thinking of a pilot. Academia, yes, but official statistics doesn't. So, and I know that also Slovenian Tourist Board had some ideas how to do it, but we want to do it systematically. We will be learning from our Austrian colleagues how to do it, and try to be rational when we will be doing it, like not to invest too much, I would say, human and financial resources, and to combine it with our existing survey, where we are on one side measuring how our population is traveling, but at the same time they're living in Slovenia, so we will also ask about their sentiment towards tourists in their local area. That's our plan. I would like maybe to add something else when I was listening to the data, how to approach data, how to handle them in the future. Slovenian Statistical Office is like register-based, let's say. And for us, the biggest challenge is how to measure, let's say, soft statistics when the opinions are involved. So for this reason, it's very challenging for us to have very good data with high frequency and granularity when it comes to the behavior of tourists, their expenditure, their perception of the offer in Slovenia, and as I said, also like this sentiment of the local population. And I would also maybe like to add on the alternative data sources. We, as official statistics, we have already started to use it and to give good insights also on the phenomenon that we are not measuring yet, to help the tourism in Slovenia to have this good information. And for us, it's also very challenging, how to have a powerful IT infrastructure, how to have skilled people to work with this data. Because, being an official statistician, it's not a very popular job, but we need powerful, skilled workers, employees, who know how to handle this data. And I think that also AI will help us, but we need to also get the battle with the ministry in charge for digitalization, because we have to work with this data in secure environment, because we can only use AI when our data are disseminated. So maybe we can improve our customers' experience, but we have also other processes to produce data, and we see a big potential, if I may, to add to this conversation.
Yes, of course. Mr. Hinteregger, do you measure the satisfaction of local communities in South Tyrol?
Yes, we do. We have something called that. Does it work? Yeah. Okay. We measure it in different ways. So actually there's the research center called EURAC. It's an institution which does a lot of scientific work. They basically measure this since a few years. That's one thing. And then also we are developing a local sustainability label, which is basically based on the GSTC, which I guess many people know. So the South Tyrol sustainability label is basically equivalent to the GSTC. We also developed that for destinations. So as part of that, you have to ask the population about tourism. That's interesting. They just did it in my little village recently, which has very little tourism, actually, only 3-4 hotels, and was surprised how, let's say, neutral, let's call it, people are about tourism. But there's this general sentiment, which you heard a little bit about tourism, and in South Tyrol it's very much felt. So sentiment is very important. And then you have also now independent people doing it. So there's different data sets around, and we have done it in the last 4 years now, and you see every year the sentiment is going the wrong direction. So you know that you got to do something, right? And especially with COVID, everybody thought, wow, we got a big problem. We had a drop of 10% of the GDP, and 90% of the drop was driven by tourism, because there was zero. And Italy actually had a drop of 9%. First time South Tyrol basically performed worse than Italy. Usually South Tyrol is kind of, let's say, the top leading region in Italy. But interestingly, afterwards, we were able to recover very fast our basically tourism industry. And already in 22, we had better numbers in 2019, which was a record year. 2019 record year, 22 record year, right? So people also see that. And we stopped a lot of things. We do no more marketing. The summer, for example, since 3 years, we decided to do no marketing, no promotion or anything. We have completely changed our complete marketing strategy to really focus basically on some seasons, some destinations, so on and so forth, to really channel, let's say, our guests. Also, but this is little steps. Now, actually, next week, we are kicking off a big project called basically habitat development, as I mentioned before, where we want to get in a much more serious dialogue with the citizens, and especially the ones which are completely opposed. We had 2 weeks ago Extinction Rebellion. Anybody knows Extinction Rebellion? Never heard about Extinction Rebellion? Okay, so you are still in a good place. Once you have got Extinction Rebellion coming to your region, it's very serious. Basically, Extinction Rebellion is like a Greenpeace, sort of Greenpeace activists, but they want to do it with the civilians, involving the civilians. So basically, they came to our headquarters and put up a big memorandum. They started at our headquarters because we support tourism, amongst other things, and basically saying stop tourism in Tyrol, right? And then they went around, tourists go home. Have you seen that before? In Barcelona, some other places. So you can imagine South Tyrol, and we measure every year also, the sentiment of the guests. Why do they come to South Tyrol? And yeah, there's many things, the mountains which you have, food, many other things, but the one that is at the very top always is really the, the hospitality. That's the very, very, very top region. Much stronger than, let's say, our neighboring region on the northern side and the southern side. So as you can imagine, if that's really a critical factor, you got to make sure that the local community and people actually support tourism, right? So yes, we measure it, but more important is, as I said before, to do something about it. And especially regions or destinations that might not be there yet, I really highly recommend to start doing it now. Because once you are in that kind of spiral, it's crazy difficult. And with post-COVID, psychological and other things which we have been seeing in recent years, it gets more and more difficult. And numbers are not good enough. So we show like every euro that's generated in South Tyrol generates a €20 in other sectors. So it has a huge impact, tourism, right? Tourism is about 10% of the GDP of South Tyrol, but when you also calculate the impact on other categories, it's actually over 20%. But those discussions, rational discussions, they don't break through anymore. So because it's very emotional, so you really have to invent new ways of dialoguing with people and listening a lot to them and trying to, as you develop the region, to take them with you and make a lot of compromises.
Thank you. So we are slowly running out of time. We have to finish this discussion, although it's very interesting and we could take it several directions. I would like you all to finish with one sentence, one message that you want our audience to hear today. And let's start maybe with Mr. Pogorec.
I adapted quickly because I heard a nice word from Erwin Hinteregger. So actually, the use of data will enable the airlines and the tourism sector to be more efficient, to be more sustainable, and to be more successful. But above all, and this is what I now improvise, is the word hospitality, despite all hard facts in data, needs to be in our mind, because otherwise, only with data alone, we cannot generate added value to the customers.
Thank you. Mr. Oblak, Flander?
Now you got me. I would say that Slovene tourism deserves high-quality data, that we need to continue work together to provide our stakeholders quality data, and at the same time work on finding ways that they will find out the abundance of data that is already there and get skilled them to be able to use it in a proper way.
Thank you. Ms. Kalin?
Well, I would say that hospitality is in our DNA. So in tourism, people first, always. But of course, for quality decision making and for good management, we need data. So we saw today in the presentations that Slovenian tourism sector is a little bit slow in adopting new technologies, digitalizations and data and so on. So I hope we will manage to speed up a little bit this process, because my silent wish is also not only to collect data and to make the right choices from it, but also to do a step forward and start to forecast with new tools. And I think with that kind of actions, we can also, on the long run, improve our sentiment of the local communities. So I think we've done a lot, but still a lot to do.
Thank you. Mr. Hinteregger?
It's very interesting because the conference is about data, and we talk a lot about other aspects. So of course, leverage data, leverage AI, all these tools. That's great. You gotta leverage them to enable tourism. But if there's anything I might leave you, it's tourism is a people business and it's a team sport. So put your people at the center and drive collaboration across every sector. Those are maybe a couple of good ingredients for success.
Thank you very much. Now we have, yes, let's give it up. We have time for one, maybe two questions, comments from the audience. We already have one lady. Please wait for our team member to bring you the microphone. Introduce yourself, and of course you can also direct your question to Ms. Bayona or Mr. Santander. They are also here to answer.
Hello, Dr. Kalin, CEO Gaia Cell, Advanced Gene and Cell Therapies. I'm interested a lot on your perspective about medical tourism. We are speaking niche product in tourism, and it adds value to the country, to the development of the country, and also to the regions. So you stop counting arrivals. You start counting what is the benefit for the local population, but also for the tourists who are coming. I started Medico Veritas 13 years ago, which is an agency which facilitated communication between patients and doctors, medical professionals. And my experience is that nobody travels and gets medical service unless it's an emergency. But there is a huge development of that niche in terms of if I go for the medical tourism, and I'm not speaking just about heart medicine, I'm speaking about wellness, rejuvenation, and dentist tourism, and neighboring countries around Slovenia, they have a plan for medical tourism, and it's an added value for the local population because it raises the quality of the service, and it gives a lot of economical impact to the homestay. So if somebody would answer that.
Thank you. Maybe we can ask Mr. Santander to give the European perspective on the topic. So medical tourism, yes.
Thank you so much for the question, and it's in fact one of our, I would not call it niche, because if you in economical and statistical terms, it's a huge piece of the cake or the lasagna. Medical tourism, it is of high value for European tourism. We have a lot of data that could be interested to you. We cooperate with members of the European Parliament in focusing in promoting that, as you were saying, it has a spillover effect in society. Maybe someone going for, maybe and mental health has been after pandemic, the new pandemic, and it's becoming a very important issue for us, as we would like, to define it a little bit better and to have a better taxonomy, because there is the porosity between what it's wellness, what it's recreational wellness, what it's medical. It's still a very gray zone in the jargon of tourism. And sometimes what you're referring is very much medical, that sometimes maybe a traveler doesn't identify him or herself as a tourist, because maybe it's going to make a surgery over the border. and therefore we don't count that person maybe as a tourist and what the effects can have. I'm very happy to provide more information. We have some studies on medical tourism, and we have really ongoing cooperations with some of the association at the European level. So reach out maybe after the conference, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Santander. Another question, maybe? Anybody else? A question, a comment? No other questions or comments, really? Okay, so because we still have some more time, maybe let's go back to Ms. Oblak Flander. How do you see the companies in Slovenia equipped to deal with statistical data that you provide? Do you, as a statistical office, see this as a challenge, and what should be done about it?
Thank you for the question. I think that the statistics which were shown today speak for themselves. More a colleague of mine could say, because he's following the digitalization of our economy. I would say that they're fragmented. They're like doing each on its own way. They're trying to make some breakthroughs. They come very often to us, whether we can give them some additional data that they can integrate in their business models and so on. Unfortunately, official statistics cannot really help them. All our data that we can give are already open to machine readable. It's machine readable. I would say that some small companies, but this is only my view, are very digitalized. They're very, very, they're like gazelles, and some big companies, they're doing amazing things. And we have also very good Slovene experts, like lecturing abroad how to deal with data digitalization, So I would say there is a big potential, but sometimes, I don't know, they need a bit of support from the ministries and also to support their innovative ideas. And I think that the ministry is very supportive in this way.
Okay, thank you very much. Any last question? We don't have any more questions, then let's give it up again for Mr. Pogorevc, Ms. Oblak Flander, Ms. Kalin, and Mr. Hinteregger. Thank you. You are now free to leave the stage. Yes. Thank you. So, based on today's discussion, we have one final thought that we want to leave you with. So it's not just about collecting and storing data. It's about having people, and people with skills who will know how to use this data. So we need to act on it to improve how we do things today, with a final goal in mind: protect the beauties of our countries, the nature, the culture, and improve the lives of local communities. Thank you all for being with us. Our discussions will continue, but in a slightly more informal setting. We kindly invite you to a light lunch that is going to happen just beyond these doors. Thank you for being the part of today's dialogue, and I wish you all a very productive and inspiring rest of the day. Thank you.